There is a sign in the heavens, another light in the darkness. A better time is beginning. There is a Firestar coming. I see the mark of the ice bear and the tears of the dragon, and you'd better start wishing there is a Firestar coming. Stay with me, my love. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Tears of Fire podcast, a podcast where I go over the Last Dragon Chronicles by Chris DeLacy. And we are back now starting the third book in the series, Firestar. Thank you so much for going on this journey with me. I hope you had a safe flight in and hit no turbulence. I do also want to take a second and just let you guys know we are going to be switching up the format just a little bit. You guys probably noticed that I missed last week. I'm going to be taking a week break in between each book, so I'll have a couple guests on throughout the book itself. We'll end the book with Kaylee, and then we'll have a week in between when we get into the next books going forward. Just a little break. Sometimes life gets busy and you just need a little time off. So thank you. I'm sorry I didn't give you guys a heads up. It's on me, but just know that'll be the schedule going forward, as well as I'm going to be cutting down these sections from 6 chapters at a time to 4. Now that these books are kind of hitting their swing, these chapters are getting longer and have a little bit more content in them. So in order to give you guys the best experience and go over everything that I'd like to, we are going to be chopping it down to 4 chapters instead. So thank you again. With that, let's get into the show. Episode 16, Book 3, Chapter 1 of Firestar, The Shooting. The beginning of this book starts out very fast. You don't really get much of an introduction to anything. You get a scene set with a polar bear running through the ice caps of the Arctic being chased down by humans in either a plane or a helicopter. I wasn't quite sure which one. It does say that it's a plane in the books, but I know when researchers and hunters are going out and doing close quarter shooting like this, it's usually in a helicopter, just a little bit more nimble, easier to stop and go. So that's my own opinion and biased knowledge, not 100% on that, but the book does say it's a plane. So this bear comes to be named Ingavar. 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 It's spelled Ingavar. So however you wish to pronounce that, do you? I'm having a hard time. It's just at this point where, you're not sure how the name is, so you see it and you just register, oh, okay, that's that character. You're not trying to pronounce it anymore. I'm already at that in 4 chapters into this, so work with me, guys. We all know what's going on. But this bear is getting shot at. He's running away. The humans are trying to kind of lead him and corral him into a certain direction. They shoot in front of him, and it springs up a bunch of ice, some shards, and some mist around him. Makes the bear start to go in one direction, and the bear is known. The bear is noticing that this is their plan. He's leading exactly into their wishes and following, their not necessarily commands, but he's doing what they're wanting. So he's trying to correct course. The second one is a little bit closer to him, sending shards into his nose as well as kind of scraping his eyes, making it painful. And then the third bullet goes into his front shoulder. It goes into his shoulder. He keeps running, but he's really hurt. He goes sliding and sounds, pretty like a good distance, about 15 to 20 feet. He's butt up with his face into the snow, and he's just almost on the brink of death. But right before the humans are about to get to him, he's wondering why they're not flying lower or maybe circling around to get him again. And there's a mist coming around him. Not the helicopter, the airplane is getting quieter in the distance, and Ingvar kind of is getting confused, and he's waning in and out of consciousness. He's losing a lot of blood. It says that he's actually lost his front arm. So this guy's on the brink of death. And as this mist comes around, he's aware of a presence. It's another polar bear, and it's a female bear, but Ingvar notices that she holds no qualities of a bear. There's no scent to her, no rotting seal, there's no hefty weight to this bear or no burden of motherhood on her. So there's something a little bit off, and she's kind of rude to him. She's telling him how he's just kind of dumb, but she recognizes that he's a descendant from Ragnar's line, reminds Ingvar of that, and tells him that she needs his help. There's a man inside of Chamberlain or close to it that she needs something from, the famous tooth of a bear. Ingvar is racking his thoughts, and the only famous tooth that he knows about is the tooth of his ancestor, Ragnar himself, and he doesn't think that there's any way this man could have this tooth. So this female bear keeps going on and tells him exactly what he's going to do. He's going to go to Chamberlain, which is the place that a lot of polar bears will go to if there's a hard time hunting or if it's in the hot season when there's no ice. They get landlocked. It's a source of food. Every bear knows it. She tells him she wants him to go to that town, find the man, and actually make contact with a girl that has the same marks that she actually marked this bear with as they were talking. Ingvar gets pretty sketched out and knows that something weird is going on and gets upset when the female bear touches him because those three marks that were left on David's contract and Xana's arm in the last book is now on his forehead as scars. The female bear then tells him to calm down and the scars will fade in a couple of days to where only when he's touched by somebody with the same marks will it come back out. But she does tell him that she's to go find the girl that's in this same town that always stays with the guy, and she'll be drawn to him because they both have the same marks. Once she touches him, then she'll be able to steal the tooth from the man and bring it to her. And at this point, I was putting, two and two together. I had a pretty good idea at first when this spirit bear showed up. I was thinking it could be Gaia, since at the end of the last book, she had kind of shown herself to be a couple of different spirits. Like she showed up as the hedgehog, she showed up as a bear, she showed up as several different things. And then after we got a couple of lines of dialogue from her, seeing that this lady was just ruthless to Ingvar, that it was more than likely Gwilanna. And once this started going on, and that she did want Ragnar's tooth to be stolen back, and that there's a girl there with the mark on her arm, same as his own, that just kind of confirms it. That's David and Xana, because we both know at the end of the last book, they were on their way out to the Arctic for the study group. They're working with Bergstrom, and they're just doing a bunch of studying on the ice caps. So we know who the two people are. They weren't named yet in this chapter, which is interesting because I guess if you're Gwilanna just setting a guy up, not necessarily setting him up, but giving him a job, he doesn't need to know the names. He just needs to know descriptions to find the people. So it makes sense, but if you put two and two together, it's Gwilanna talking about David and Xana. We do get a name for that mark, actually. The name that Gwilanna gives to him is Omara, not to the bear, but to the three-line mark. And that I wasn't too sure on the relevance, maybe not relevance, but the importance on that. I'll have to do some research and butt in with editing Diego. Maybe there's some more native connection that I'm not positive, that I'm not privy to. Hey everyone, editing Diego here, and I just wanted to do a little bit of research on the mark of Omara, and this seems to be a Chris original, but there's some interesting roots of it. If you take out one of the O's, because in Chris's spelling it's capital O-O-M-A-R-A, and in that one it's said to be Omara is the mark of the three parallels, the dragons, the bears, and the humans. That's from the fandom, the wiki fandom. But then if you take off one of the O's and you just spell it Omara, there's a couple of different things. Amara has multiple origins and meanings. In Arabic, it can mean long life, builder, or flourishing, derived from the root word Amar, AMR, which signifies life or building. In another one, it says Omar can be the variant of a Hebrew name Omer, Omer, symbolizing new beginnings and harvest. So I thought that one was interesting, especially with the Omer, Omer, because at the beginning of this book, in the first chapter, we are introduced to a new bear. It seems like this current age, Ingavar, that we are talking about, we're getting a new story. We're introduced, bam, 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 new beginnings, a new harvest. We're getting into also the new cycle of the world that David is going to talk about, where it's repeating from over 4.5 billion years ago. So, yeah, I just wanted to say that there was a little bit of nice planning into that. And if it wasn't planning, that was some divine intervention coincidence. And that brings us to an end of the opening chapter. It was pretty exciting. I wrote in here that it's a strong, good opening. It kind of keeps you on your toes and in suspense. You get to meet one new character, and then they don't name the other ones, but we get a reintroduction to some old characters that we kind of missing and having a good time. All right, and that brings us to chapter 2, A Letter Home. At the Penny Kettle's house, all seems pretty normal. Liz is upstairs in the dragon's den working, and when a little male pops through the door, it hits Bonington in the head. There's a nice little interaction just between everybody, showing that all the dragons are doing their job. Gwilanna comes down, sees that Bonington's sitting on it, then relays the message, and etc. etc. Lucy ends up coming down to grab the letter. She runs up and hands it to her mom. She asks if she can read it, but Liz then tells her that David only gave the okay for Liz to read all the mail, and that she could reveal what she deems appropriate to Lucy. So it wasn't anything crazy, but they're going through and they're reading the letter. One thing I actually did forget to mention just now is when, before Liz starts reading, she tells Lucy to go grab the dragons, Gadzooks and Grith, because maybe they might want to hear from David. And man, that made me wonder, like, why didn't David take Gadzooks? I know he's coming back and it's only supposed to be for 6 weeks, but if he's working on the second book, he's going to need inspiration of some part. And it even says in here that there's not very much communication whatsoever between him and Gadzooks. Lucy does mention that it's not enough to hurt Gadzooks whatsoever. He's more just confused. And this is what he was confused about, is when Lucy came down, or not Lucy, it was one of the dragons. I think it was either Gwilanna or Gruffin coming down to check on him. He had been mapping the stars. He's drawing them on the window in the fog, and then copying that down into his notepad. When they go upstairs, Gretel is pretty much imprisoned inside the dragon's den. They must have caught her right before they could get to Gronkle, right before they could get to Gronkle. Because they do mention that the baby is still hard and stone. So maybe the lock of Liz's hair didn't do much, or wasn't enough to satisfy the hunger to keep him alive. But Graith does kind of give some thought into that and feels bad about Gretel being pretty much held hostage because she just wanted to save her own kind. And he was wondering and struggling if that was right himself. He, just like Gretel, is a dragon and would love to see a natural one come back to life. But was it worth giving up of your family? So, some moral questioning there. It's weird to see in a second chapter already. We're getting to the hard stuff. Poor Gretel, as soon as she's set free, has already been imprisoned again. And I mean, this time it was her choice, but it didn't seem like what she was doing was malicious in any way. It also makes me wonder how Gretel's feeling. Is she starting to plot against the Penny Kettles? Not necessarily to work with Gwilanna again, but just to work on her own plan. It's kind of what I would do. You got to take your own side and make sure you're good before anyone else. But anyway, after all this, Liz starts reading out the letter. David has good jokes just about overall ice cap stuff, some corny dad jokes. But he goes on to say that the base that he's working at is about 10 miles from Chamberlain. Xana is working on the odors and chemicals that are being released from the ice when it's melting in the ice caps, and how those might be affecting global warming. He says that the Earth is about to go through another cycle that is repeating from close to about 4.5 billion years ago when the Earth was still starting. And that kind of threw Gadzooks through a loop. He was noticing something as well, and Lucy comments on that, not now, later on in the section, but we do have a quick little instance where Gadzooks is thousands of miles away from David, and it doesn't seem that they have any connection or talking to each other. He's mapping the stars, and David's over there talking about how the stars are continuing a pattern, and he seems to be mapping them for his study over there too. So, very connected, even though it might be them doing their own research on different ends of the earth. It's kind of crazy to see. Maybe Graith's maybe Graith's wish is still kind of at play here in the background. In the letter, David also mentions that Bergstrom was called out for a meeting. And to me, I was wondering if, now that they're out there in the Arctic and he could finally go back to his Inuit tribe, has he been called back into the Council of Bears? Is there another meeting going on? Is he going to go help Ingavar get to Chamberlain? But if he is, why would he be working with him? Because he's now working with Gwilanna. Unless they're going to be uh, fighting over him, kind of the same way in the last book where Gwilanna and Bergstrom were fighting over David for his assistance to see which side he'd pick. Maybe Ingvar is going to be part of that too. It's been a long time since I've read this. This is one of the only books I've never reread, period. So it truly has been about close to 15 or 16 years of reading from here on out from these books. So it'll be interesting to see. I don't really remember Ingvar being part of this thing, but now that he's a part of Ragnar's evolution line, or not evolution line, ancestry line, and he's now been talked to by Gwilanna, it seems like he's going to have a big part. So we'll have to see where it goes. David also goes on to say that him and Xana are having a great time. Xana is telling everyone that'll listen that she loves David every time, every 10 minutes or so. But she knows that something is up. She hasn't been sleeping well, and each time she's waking up, she's telling David that there's something going on with Gretel. This kind of puts Lucy on edge, makes her feel guilty looking over at Gretel in her prison, and asks Liz if she should tell her what's going on, and that Xana would understand that they're just trying to protect the dragons. Liz says it might not be quite the best idea right now, but she can say something that isn't necessarily lying, but don't let her know what's going on with Gretel. Lucy then goes to write back immediately, running down the stairs. Liz puts the letter inside the drawer, where we find out she actually didn't write the contract. And one of the things David was saying is he was asking about his money, if it had come from the publishers yet. And Liz told Lucy that it hasn't come. She's not sure what's going on. Lucy thinks that it might come by the time David reaches, by the time David gets Lucy's response to him. And Liz says that's a good, that's a good thing to say. Yeah. But we come to find out when she's putting away this new letter from David that she never mailed out the contract. I think we can put two and two together that she was just scared after seeing that mark that if she did, something bad would happen. Which, the mark we've only been seen to be given by Gwilanna. So if it was given to him by the bears, I wouldn't feel quite as bad, but the fact that the only time it shows up is when it's being dealt by its evil Sybil, I think it might be a good idea to just hold off on it for a second. But that brings us into chapter 3, A Strange Companion. The scene now jumps back to going back with Ingvar, and he's traveling. He's been going on for about 6 days, and his arm is semi fixed. The lady, they didn't name her as Gwilanna, but we know she shifted into a bird and then she shifted into a woman in front of this bear's face, but gave him his arm back, but still wounded. So he's able to be limping and walking. And on his way, he gets a sense of another bear following him. He does smell bear on this one, though. He can smell the rotting seal. He could feel the raw power behind him. He can sense that it's a little bit of an older dragon. He can sense that's a little bit older of a bear, but that it doesn't necessarily give off a threatening vibe. He's not trying to run him out of his territory or trying to challenge his authority in any way. So Ingvar kind of holds up. And he tells this old bear to get lost and that he's on kind of his own mission. Ingvar sits there and tells him his name, that he's actually Thoran. It made me pause for a second because I don't remember seeing Thoran in the Council of Nine. I didn't think he could be one of these spirit bears. I thought maybe he just, let his line down. But this is kind of cool that we get the original bear. I was wondering if that Ingvar would know him. He is a descendant from Ragnar, so obviously he's got a connection to those ancient royal bloodlines, so to say, in the bear world. But his only real comment, Ingvar lets him know that it sucks to have that name, that your parents would do that to you, because then you kind of have to live up to that, and nobody ever could, right? They're having this conversation, but Thorin basically tells him, like, hey man, just so you know, there's a blizzard coming. I don't think you're going to make it, so why don't we pair up together? You can use me for some warmth, and then we'll travel together for a little bit. Ingvar doesn't believe him, but he looks up and he sees that a blizzard is starting to form over there. He's a little sketched out on how that could happen and how the bear just automatically knew that. But trusting him, seeing that he didn't mean any kind of harm, they laid down together. Thorin tells him that he can see that Ingvar is tired, needs rest, and hungry. So the bear he takes that advice. He cuddles up to the old Thorin, puts his wounded shoulder and wound onto him, so it's kind of being warmed instead of getting frostbite. But that's kind of where that one. And as he's tucking in, Ingvar gives his name to Thorin. I think Thorin had already known, and that's why he was there in the first place. I think maybe he was called over as soon as Ingvar got, I would say, marked by Gwilanna. So it's going to be fun to see where this thing goes, man. Are these bears going to be an actual character? I thought they were going to be kind of just helpers, but if we're getting this guy more than even David right now, because we've only seen a letter of David, not David interacting, doing anything, it's pretty cool. Are they going to cross paths? Well, they have to. We've already heard that. At least the intention is there. So when they finally do, who's going to win? All right. Chapter 4, Lucy writes back. Lucy is running around. She finds a pad that has 2 red squirrels on it, and she sends that picture to David as well. She introduces them and tells them that this is Hermione and Crispin. And I I want to point out and say that I feel vindicated right here, because when I did the episode with the 2 girls, Darian and Lucy from Aragon and Back Again, awesome, super appreciate them. They were great guests. Can't wait to work with them again. But one thing I brought up is that there were a couple spots in here and in the first book that very much reminded me of Harry Potter inspired. These books started coming out when Harry Potter was getting popular because of the movies, And this is very much, again, just proof of that. Very cool. It's nice to have pop culture references. It does kind of date these books, however. It's starting to make me feel old, but it is what it is. So yeah, Vindication. I knew that Harry Potter was an inspiration in some way, shape, or form. You can't have too much because those are wizards. We're not really dealing with wizards here, but it's nice to see references thrown here and there. But Lucy starts writing. She brings up Gadzooks drawing stars and tells him that that's kind of funny that they're, a little more connected than you thought. She also brings up that Gretel is missing Xana. Didn't want to lie, so she just says that it would be better once both of them get back home and then everything can go back to as much of normalcy as humanly possible. When she wraps up this letter that she's writing, her mom comes over and Liz is asking if she wants to go to the store for her. She's got to run and get, a few household things. And Lucy says no, but she wants to mail these things out as soon as possible. So she asks her mom if it's okay if she goes while her mom's out. Liz takes a second to think on it, but she does eventually agree. She tells Lucy, as long as you go straight there and back and you're very careful, that's fine. And, that's good on Liz for wanting her daughter to be independent. And in this such a small community where pretty much everyone knows everything, or where pretty much everyone knows each other, that's a tight knit community. You can be held accountable and responsible there. I don't think anything would happen in Scrubly. But unfortunately, in this day and age, I mean, I know these books are probably dated for about 20 years ago, 30 years ago at this point. I wouldn't feel comfortable letting my 11-year-old kid just walk out on the street alone anywhere. Even if they had friends their own age, it's a little sketch. I understand. Yeah, this is just about writing letters, and I'm going very deep into something that wasn't even a thought back in the day. But for the kids listening out there, stranger danger. If you don't know the person, don't talk to them. Don't leave with them. You do exactly what you're planned to, and if you need help, you scream for help. All right, to get off of that, Lucy needs an address, and she tells Gwilanna that she needs some help. Gwilanna then relays all the messages between them, saying that the letter was put into the drawer, and she can't get to it because he's not big enough. Maybe Gretel or another dragon that was made for more than just being a little puffler could do it, but at this point he's not able to. So Lucy says not to worry, taps him on the snout, runs up to the stairs to go open the drawer and get the letter. And as she's doing it, she finds it, gets the address, but then Gretel stops her. Gretel can feel that the contract hasn't been mailed out, or maybe she just knew that it hasn't been mailed out this whole time. And she lets Lucy know that she didn't see everything in there. Lucy gets a little confused. I wouldn't say necessarily upset, but like maybe annoyed. She tells Gretel that she saw everything. She saw the notepads, the erasers, the stapler, batteries, things like that. That's going to be in a random trunk drawer. But Gretel insists. She says, check again. She's not really saying these things, they say her, but then Lucy's responding. So I'm only guessing what Gretel is saying in dragon tongue, but I can assume she said, you didn't see everything, go check again. Lucy does, and she finds the big envelope with David's contract, and she doesn't really think anything of it. She goes, oh, well, this is obviously why David hasn't gotten any money, and just thinks that Liz forgot to mail it out. So since she did get permission from her mom to go mail these things out, Liz is already long gone to the store at this point. Lucy is alone, nobody to stop her or anything. She loads everything up and then heads out to go mail all her stuff. Before she heads out, Gretel gives her a little pretty much asking if she can be let out since she did a good thing. Lucy feels extremely guilty, but says that she still can't let her out just because she's not sure that's a safe call. Gretel gets pretty upset and goes kind of hunkers in the corner where nobody can see her. And then at the end of the chapter, it says that this is when the trouble began, when Lucy mailed out all the letters, including that contract. So that Sucks. You know, nobody lied about anything. Well, Liz lied. Um, Not necessarily lied, because I don't think she ever told anybody that she didn't mail it out. She told David that she would, and she just hadn't gotten to it yet? Question mark. But she probably never told Lucy anything about it. And so Lucy, being a good girl and assuming the best out of everyone, thought that she could just help out by taking that contract and mailing it out. But I think this is going to be what sets it all in motion, obviously. You know, now that there's a magical contract, not only with David and the publishing firm, but David and Gwilanna, because of that mark being there, everything's about to just break loose. So I'm just so excited into it. That was a great first 4 chapters to get eased into the book. Uh, Going forward, I plan on having a lot more guests. These books are starting to get way thicker. They're gaining about 100 pages per book. The last one was about 430, and this next one ends at 448 or 548. So, you know what, guys? Thank you very much for coming on this journey with me. It's going to be a fun ride. I keep saying that I'm just excited, but to be able to share this story from my childhood with you guys, seeing that there's nothing else out there, it really makes me happy. So, again, thank you for joining. We'll see you next week. Have a safe flight out and hit no turbulence.